44. Guardian Spirits in the Kingdom of Nature. 5th of March, 1847. You know how, at certain times, gardeners and farmers scatter seeds in the soil, and that soon after each seed scattered in the soil begins to swell, finally bursts open at the place where the germ is located, and a small white-greenish point comes out of the seed. That is the germ. Almost visibly, this germ tenderly grows more and more, and where previously only one spike was visible, now 2, 3, and more leaves are unfolding, and the plant continues to expand, gaining strength and power, and soon the flower buds are visible. From hour to hour, they become more and more exuberant, finally burst open, unfold, the blossom appears, and in its calyx, the new fruit already sits like a young bee in its cell, and is first nourished as an infant by the ambrosial scent of the flower. And when the new fruit has attained just strength through this heavenly food, it receives its nourishment from the trunk and its life from the light. Behold, such is the natural course during the growth of a plant. For the growth begins with the first insertion of the seed into the earth, and ends with the ripening of the fruit. The seed itself would have as little power to look for its own nourishment as a newborn child, even less than a child in the womb, if there were not spirits who would give to those spiritual intelligence properties that direction through which these properties have to go to a certain point where their own sphere of action is assigned to them. In order to see this quite figuratively, let us now take a grain of wheat. The grain of wheat has the following intelligence property in itself. First, particles of love, that is, the actual nutrient in the grain of wheat. A second propertium is the spirit, or actually, spiritual substrate, by virtue of which alcohol can also be obtained from the grain of wheat, as from other fruits. Another property is the carbon, which is immediately visible when burning. Therefore, it often happens that if too much of this property rises in a stalk, the seed already from the field becomes gangrenous and finally black. Another property feature of this grain is the sour and brewing substance, by virtue of which a tasty beer can be made from this seed, just as from barley, oats, and corn. Another property feature is the ethereal sulfur, which is responsible for the combustibility of the seed. And yet another property is the oil substance, according to which a quite tasty oil can be drawn from the wheat, as from any other grain. Another substance is the sugar substance, which is very abundant in the wheat seed kernel. And yet another substance or propertium is the gummy mucilage, according to which the so-called starch flour can be obtained from this seed kernel. Then, in the seed, there is a good portion of the purest and simplest hydrogen gas propertium, which is a main component of the wheat stalk, as well as of all other plant genera. For this substance or propertium continually fills the hollow tube of the stalk and keeps it upright. Without this substance, the stem could not grow upwards, and thus the hollow stem is a balloon tied to its roots in the earth, which maintains the flesh of the plant, as long as it has not acquired its own necessary firmness. But once this has attained its necessary firmness, then this propertium is drawn more and more into the ripening and maturing seed, and is kept there as a basic propertium in order to be present in the next sowing as the first main thing in the business of growing in just measure. From this enumeration of the propertia in our wheat grain, we have seen how many different basic propertia must be present and active. But how are they led? By spirits employed for this purpose, whereby, however, always a subdivision of the spirits occurs, which have their business territorially over themselves. The lowest kind of spirits has only about one field each, approximately as the natural fields are divided among the people on the surface of the earth. Such a spirit has the necessary wisdom and power, and directs the individual propertia merely with his will, and this will is like a judgment for the released soul propertia. This spirit knows exactly the propertia in the seed laid into the earth. It knows how much of it is present from the earth and how much down from the stars, and in what kind and in what proportion. When then the seed is put into the earth, he breathes his will over the field, which will, homogeneous with the certain properties, sees these properties and compels them to their determined place. There they flow according to their intelligence directed to this point, and there they begin their business in the form of infusorial animal-like beings, for which they possess intelligence and the appropriate power. There they form the roots, the tubes. Others again rise into these roots and nourish or enlarge them. Others again rise through the roots into the trunk, seize there the equals and kindred in the order of their intelligence, and one kind forms the tubes in the trunk, the other form valves, pumps, and vents. Again others and purer ones rise through these tubes and form leaves in the order and form of their intelligence. Again, still purer ones rise higher through the tubes and form the bud, the flower, and the purest, and by this act itself, most purified ones form the fruit, and the even spiritual central intelligences unite in the fruit to the germ, and enclose themselves with a tissue, through which the outer and not yet so pure intelligences cannot penetrate. the ripeness has been caused by this activity over time, then this field's spirit has also done its work, and leaves the rest to the people, and something thereby to the nature spirits, which then cause the decomposition, or better, the further dissolution of those parts which do not belong to the fruit, so that these propertia can rise then in the next period in a freer form. Now think of as many such spirits, as many fields, and as many different plant genera as there are. Each one gets a certain genus on a certain territory, and has to take care that his genus continues in the same condition and form. The slightest inattention on the part of such a managing spirit results in a misgrowth and a misharvest, which is sometimes not uncommon with spirits, because they do not have a directed, but a completely free will with regard to their work, which is necessary, because in a directed will there can be no power. Therefore, if people are to be chastened with a bad harvest, nothing more or less is needed than to entrust this business to more lukewarm spirits who do not care so much about it. If these spirits, which watch over the vegetation, do not bring the properly delivered soul property in the right order and the right number under the roof, the unoccupied ones immediately rise to the second region, unite there to self-beings and to nature spirits, then cause bad weather, bad miasms, and all this has a bad effect on the plant growth. But so that this happens as seldom as possible, and only in a few places, these spirits again have a higher and more perfect spirit over them, which already has a much larger territory to supervise. Such a spirit is, as it were, like a lord of the manor, and already has many things under him. Imagine the individual spirits like subjects, and the one who is over them like a lord of the manor, and you have a pretty much correct relationship. Or like there is a lord who has various businesses in his district, and is privy to each individual business. His workers each do only one, but he overlooks them all, and distributes the work to them according to their talents. A lord of the manor, or such a lord of his district, however, does not reach over into the district of another. But so that an equal order may prevail in all districts according to the nature of the districts, a spiritual governor is again placed over the district lords, who in a certain way already overlooks and directs a whole country in everything. This is already a spirit from the third region. But you know that several countries make up a kingdom. An angelic prince watches over it. But over all kingdoms, the Prince of Princes watches, as he also watches what no spirit can do in every single property. And it is therefore that the eye of the Lord sees everywhere what is there and happens.